How to fit a wet room shower screen. In this case, they call it an enclosure, but it's not really an enclosure. It's just a side screen that we're going to fit. The first thing you do is consult your manual, and that tells you all the parts that you need to fit the screen and how you should fit it. Always follow the installation guides. Now I'm going to tell you how I fit it. I always keep my frame about 5 mil away from the edge, because your glass is going to go in and that will push it over a little bit more. Drill your holes, in this case 4 holes. And then you got your back rail, and that back rail is going to be fixed to your tiled wall. Now a lot of plumbers don't like the fact that you silicone all the way down. But guys, honestly, silicone this back rail. Forget about other plumbers struggling to change it or to take it out. Because if anything happens to the glass, you don't have to change the back rail. You can just change the glass. So why you would want to remove your back rail makes no sense. Once you've drilled your holes, get some silicone inside the holes before you plug them. That just ensures that no water can get in there. And then just plug those holes. When you position your back rail, stick a level on it, make sure it's nice and level, and mark each hole for drilling. Now you don't need a lot of silicone on the back of this rail, because you're still going to apply a bead on either side, but you just want a nice, consistent, thin bead right down the center of the rail, as best as you can. Offer your rail to the wall. Always eye the first and second roll plug, so that you're not getting loads of silicone smudging everywhere. And screw your screws in. Before we put the glass in, just put a dab of silicone at the bottom there, so we know that's got a really good seal. Now pro tip, always get a little bit of your packaging and put on either side, so that when you bring the glass in, you can position it there before you insert it into your track. Now this is a word of warning. This is a toughened glass and is very resistant to impact. But if you scratch or nick any of those edges against a hard metal or something like that, this glass will explode. So make sure that when you're carrying it in, you're not going to bump this against any solid surfaces like tiles or metal brackets or anything like that. They're pretty heavy, so if you can get someone to help you, then do that rather than struggling on your own. See, now that you got those there, you can actually use them to maneuver the whole glass without scratching that shower tray closer, and then you can just take them out and gently just put it down, and then we can gently coach it in nicely like that. Now when you're maneuvering these great big pieces of glass, never ever put your face in front of the edge of the glass, because if this does shatter, it will explode outwards and hit you in the face. So never put your face or any body part in front of this section of glass. Now you'll be supplied with your rubber seal that always goes on the inside, never on the outside. And a pro tip, get yourself some silicone grease, and you just want a little bit of it on your finger, roll it up like that, and just give it a pull through, and that will lightly lube your seal so that you're not kinking it when you put it in between your track and your glass. Most suppliers will supply you with a little tool like that, or a little plastic flat tool to put your rubber in. This is quite a good one, which has got a wheel on there. But if you don't have any of that, a plastic packer does the job just as good. Always start from the bottom And because we've lubed that, you'll find that it goes quite easy in. Once you got your rubber in, go from the top and run your tool down all the way, because that rubber does stretch. That piece of rubber can be cut off. We're going to leave that till the last, because that rubber will shrink slightly. If we cut that rubber now, you'll find that it will shrink and there'll be a piece short. So just leave that for a little bit, let that settle in and shrink down a bit. As we pushed it up, we stretched that rubber, so that will end up shrinking a bit. So we'll leave it for a bit and then we'll cut it off. Always wipe any excess of silicone nicely. And just make sure that your glass is nice and straight with your shower tray. Now we're ready to fit your top rail, which goes from the top of your glass right through. So the first thing we got to do is mark it out on the wall. It's slightly oversized, so we're going to have to cut it down. So we're going to measure from the bottom section to the wall and the top one, just ensure that that's nice and level, and we'll get a measurement to be able to cut that down to size. The best way of doing this is mark your rail to the outside edge of your glass, and then that will give you enough to go in. You can use a hacksaw for this or a grinder. We're going to make sure that that is a good fit, and as you can see, that fits in perfectly. Always test things before you fit it, and you know that that will fit perfectly. So now we can mark everything out where it's going to go. Just going to make sure it's nice and level, and then we can put a mark just at the bottom. And then what we want to do is measure to the inside. Let's put it at 710. Mark it at 710, which is there. And we'll just put a little mark like that, so we know exactly where that's going. Put 2 marks and we can now drill those holes. Now that we got the holes drilled, we can finally do what we always do with holes, and that's fill them. And then your plugs can go in. So that's your bracket attached to the wall. Always put your grub screws to the top so they're not seen. And then that one goes in there. Slide your bracket on. All we got to do is tighten those grub screws up, which is normally always really awkward to do because they're in awkward positions. And then we got to find those up there and tighten them up nicely. And then before you tighten those, we'll just take a measurement, make sure it's the same, just like that. And then we can just tighten these grub screws. Now don't over tighten them, because we don't want to pierce through that rubber and crack that screen. Now we're probably giving that rubber enough time to shrink, so we can just nice and gently trim it off like that. And that's your shower screen now fitted. The only thing we've got to do is clear silicone down the outside and the inside edge, and then on both sides all the way down. But we're going to do that right at the end when everything's finished and clean. We'll do all the siliconing. For now, that's all we're doing. So if you like tips and tricks like this, then just follow the channel for some more.